Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media, consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills at which formal action may be taken. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda. We have roll call, please.
Mr. Baker?
Here.
Mrs. Clark Emery? Ms. Cooper?
Here.
Mrs. DeGrandpre?
Here.
Mrs. Frenda?
Here.
Mr. Joyce?
Here.
Ms. Nathans?
Here.
Mrs. Tober?
Here.
Mrs. Rye? And Mrs. Santoro?
Here. Okay. Whereas the Open Public Meeting Act authorizes a public body to exclude the public from that portion of a meeting at which specified topics are to be discussed under circumstances where the public consideration of such topics will clearly endanger the public, or where the personal privacy or guaranteed rights of individuals whose activities or affairs are to be discussed would be clearly in danger of unwarranted invasions, and whereas the matters about to be presented for discussion clearly meet the circumstances test of such act. Resolved that the Board of Education of Somerset Hills now adjourns its public session to reconvene in executive session for the purpose of discussing the following: personnel, student matters, contracts, negotiations, and litigation. Can I have a motion to move into executive? Kathy and Kristen? Okay, thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to a meeting of the Somerset Hills School District Board of Education. We have just come out of executive session, and if everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Baker?
Here.
Mrs. Clark Emery?
Here.
Ms. Cooper?
Here.
Mrs. DeGrandpre?
Here.
Mrs. Frenda?
Here.
Mr. Joyce?
Here.
Ms. Nathans?
Here.
Mrs. Tober?
Here.
Mrs. Rye?
Here.
And Mrs. Santoro?
Here. Okay, we will move right into the report of the superintendent.
Thank you, Mrs. Santoro. Before we welcome our student reporters, the board's attorney would like to share some information. So, Darlise, it's all you.
And I'll just take a moment to introduce this. We have been doing a series of school law talks where our board attorney just discusses a different topic monthly and provides information to the public, the board members, on the legal aspects of the Board of Education.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Santoro. Can you all hear me? Great. So we picked this month's topic to be about teachers and tenure, really because there is a date that comes up in the school community, which is May 15th, which is a statutory deadline by which non-tenured teachers have to be notified that they're not going to be, if they are not going to be renewed for the following school year, they need to know that on or before May 15th. So we thought it was timely to talk about it this month, and rather than having me talk about the budget. So, school law talks. And the other reason why we started to have these conversations also is because what I forget, because this is what I do for a living, I live in this world of school law, that the rest of the world doesn't necessarily. And there are very specific laws and regulations that affect schools that don't exist anywhere else. So we thought it would be helpful for parents to get a little bit of a flavor for what it's like to be inside a school district. So, let me go back for a second, because I think I clicked too much. Perfect. Okay, here we go. It's the first time that I got the clicker, so I've graduated. Teachers and certain other employees in school districts get something that's called tenure, which means that once they've worked for a certain amount of time, they have tenure in their jobs. They can't be fired except for very specific reasons. And today we're just going to talk about teachers. Secretaries get tenure by statute. In certain cases, in some places, janitors or custodians get tenure. School principals get tenure also because they're certificated employees. But we're just going to limit ourselves to teachers today. So teachers attain tenure after 4 consecutive calendar years, or the equivalent of more than 4 academic years within a period of any 5 consecutive academic years. So the first part is easy, 4 consecutive calendar years. If I start working in September, then 4 years and a day. The second part about the equivalent of more than 4 academic years within a period of any 5 consecutive academic years is to cover those people that start working, for example, in March, which is not within, it's within an academic year. There is a requirement that brand new teachers get district mentorship. And the other piece about getting tenure is that the teacher also has to have a rating of effective or highly effective in 2 of the 3 annual evaluations after that mentorship year. For those of you who aren't aware of what the next line is, NJSA means New Jersey Statutes Annotated, 18A 28-5, that's where we find the law on teacher tenure. 18A is that portion of the New Jersey law where all of the school law, all of the laws affecting schools are in there, or most of them, I should say. Teacher evaluations, tenured staff have to have multiple observations. It used to be that they only needed to have 1, now there should be more than 1. And non-tenured staff, non-tenured teachers have to have a minimum of 3 observations every year. And that's an observation by their supervisor. Any teacher who receives a partially effective or ineffective rating also has to have a mid-year evaluation. I went too far. The clicker is sensitive. Okay. So the only way once a teacher has attained tenure, the only way that that person would be removed from their position is if there was something that's called tenure charges, if they were filed. And tenure charges are typically filed if somebody has, not been performing their job appropriately. The superintendent of schools would generally be the person to sign the tenure charges. There's a whole process that I'm not going to get into. The board would have to take a look at those tenure charges, and then they would go to the Commissioner of Education inside the Department of Education in the state of New Jersey, and then an arbitrator would be assigned who would hear the case, and then there would be a hearing, and that arbitrator would determine whether or not the teacher should be dismissed from the position or not. And that's all under the tenure employees hearing law. And I raise this only because there have been times where I hear parents who are not happy with a particular teacher, not here in general, I represent a lot of school districts, and they don't understand. They say, well, why can't you just let that teacher go? Well, that teacher already has tenure. So it's not just a question of, hello, we don't want you here anymore, and goodbye. There's a whole process through that protects the teacher to make sure that teachers aren't let go randomly or for just any old reason, right? So it's a process. Right. So that talks a little bit about the process. It is the other thing too that tenure protects an employee for against loss of compensation. So a school district can't just go up to a teacher and say, you know what, this year we decided that we're paying you too much, we're going to pay you less. That doesn't work that way. Okay. Teaching staff members may be dismissed or reduced in compensation for inefficiency, incapacity, conduct unbecoming, or other just cause. Incapacity is if somebody's not able to do their job. Inefficiency is if they're not doing it well. Conduct unbecoming is if they do something that is unprofessional, egregious, and other just cause is just the catch-all phrase that an arbitrator would determine what that other just cause might be. Teaching staff members it's defined in the statute as any member of the professional staff of any district. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but that person has to be holding a certificate that's issued by the State Board of Examiners, and it also includes school nurse and the athletic trainer. Those are all considered teaching staff members. So, if for inefficiency tenure charges, there are 4 rating categories. Those are the rating categories for evaluations. So it would be ineffective, partially effective, effective, and highly effective. If a teacher is ineffective in 2 years in a row, the superintendent is required to file inefficiency tenure charges for inefficiency. And if the teacher is rated partially effective and ineffective, again, in 2 years in a row, again, the superintendent is required to file charges for inefficiency. I said earlier that an arbitrator gets assigned. The law used to be, up to a few years ago, that any tenure cases would go in front of the Office of Administrative Law. They would go to the Commissioner of Education, who would then send the case to the Office of Administrative Law, where an administrative law judge would have a hearing. That law was changed when the tenure statute was changed. The law was changed. The provision was changed that it is no longer an administrative law judge that hears the case, but rather an arbitrator that gets appointed. The board always has the burden of proof, because the board is the one that's choosing to dismiss the teacher. And what the arbitrator is supposed to look at is whether or not the ratings were accurate. Was there any mistake of fact? Was there any mistake in calculating the rating? But the quality of the employee's classroom performance is not subject to the arbitrator's review. The arbitrator is only supposed to determine whether the evaluation failed to adhere substantially to the evaluation process. There weren't enough observations. The observations weren't done thoroughly, for example. If there's a mistake of fact in the evaluation, if the charges were brought for a discriminatory reason, or if the board's actions were arbitrary and capricious. And when it refers to the board there, it's also referring to whoever was doing the evaluation. And that's about it. That's it for tenure charges and teacher tenure for this year. Okay.
Thank you. Does anybody on the board have a question for Terlise?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terlise. A tough act to follow, but we are ready for our middle schoolers. I think Victoria DeVito and Peter de Grandpré are here. You guys can come up to the podium. Nice and loud.
Wait. Hi, my name is Peter Grandpré, and I am in 7th grade. Today I'll be addressing you about our school baseball team and Roy G. Biv Week at BMS. First, let's start with baseball. I'm playing third base this year for the BMS Bulldogs. The team consists of 27 players, including me. We have a large variety of kids, from kids who have never played baseball before and are learning the basics, to our experienced players and 8th graders. We like to be competitive and have fun at the same time. We are currently having practices 3 to 4 times a week and are moving along with our progression and skill with ease. We have 9 more games in 5 days of an end-of-season tournament with our coaches Coach Boudreau and Coach Visconti and captains James Renz, Sonny Lorenzo, Taj Travalics, and Andrew Trapp. With our season ending in 1 month, we are glad we made friends and got better at the game we love. Now I'd like to tell you what our school did for Earth Day. Our school called it Roy G. Biv Week. During this week-long event, the Green Team has set up events where we wear different colors for every day. Monday we wore red, on Tuesday we wore orange, Wednesday yellow, Thursday green, and we wore blue on Earth Day. This event was great and allowed us to participate and have fun. The Green Team sponsored a STEAM challenge for students and families to make an Earth Day collage, with the winning team earning house points. Rutgers and Princeton tied for first. Penn State is the leading house so far this year with 8 wins. I am in Penn State. So far this school has been doing a great job and we've been having a great time at school. And now to hear from Victoria.
Hello, my name is Victoria DeVito, and I am a 7th grade student at Bernardsville Middle School. Today, I'm very excited to inform you about BMS softball and the BMS Animal Shelter Drive. Softball is a beloved spring sport at Bernardsville Middle School. Any student from 6th to 8th grade can join the softball team. This year, the softball team had a much greater number of players than some of the previous years, which was very exciting for the coaches. Although this large number of players could potentially be challenging, Coach Porter and Coach Corey created a rotating team system. This means that the whole BMS softball team is broken up into a red squad, blue squad, and white squad. This system keeps 2 squads per game. The red squad attends every game, while the blue and white squads rotate. The unity of the team, however, is not lost because the entire team works together at every practice. The 3 students voted team captain were Gabriela Magno in 8th grade, Gracie Magno in 7th grade, and Giada Valente in 6th grade. So far, the softball season has been full of the spirit of learning and competition. I am proud to say that the BMS softball team's most recent game, that was against Long Valley, was a victory, making it the first win against the tough Long Valley softball team in a while. However, BMS spirit is not only found in softball. It can also be found in school. A great example of this is the Animal Shelter Drive, a current community service event at BMS. This event started on the 20th of April and ends this Friday, the 29th of April. During this event, students have the opportunity to donate dog supplies, cat supplies, and office supplies and cleaning supplies. This wonderful event also allows students to gain 15 minutes of community service for each item donated. The Animal Shelter Drive was organized by the BMS Kindness Club to help support our local furry friends.
Thank you for listening to us and have a nice evening.
Thank you both. I don't know if we have anybody from the high school here. I don't see Mario and I don't see Chris. So I'm going to move on. That is unfortunate. Before I pass things over to Kristen de Grand Pre, not Peter, to recognize our retiree, I wanted to recognize Jasmine Allen, who is here with us this evening. Jasmine is on the agenda to be approved as the Bedwell principal. A few facts about the process. We had 66 applications that were ultimately submitted, and while 17 people were invited to our first round interviews, 15 of these people actually showed up and talked to Dr. Butler and I. 6 of the 15 people were invited to and submitted videos outlining their 100-day plans for the school. This is a new performance task that we implemented this year. And 3 highly qualified competitive candidates participated in our committee interview earlier this month. I'd like to thank the parents, administrators, and teacher who participated in this exercise, and to the board president and the chair of personnel who observed the committee interview. I'm especially grateful for the dialogue that was shared with the HSA co-presidents that helped me understand the parent community's thoughts surrounding this opportunity. Ms. Jasmine Allen is an enthusiastic vice principal currently serving in Montclair. With an master's in educational leadership, her passion for engaging students and families in the school experience was palpable throughout the interview process, and her demonstrated ability to drive success through a data-focused lens was clearly apparent to the committee. I'm happy she is here tonight, and I look forward to her future success at Bedwell. Mr. Grant.
Whereas Patricia Barbetta has been employed from October 2016 through June 2022 as a paraprofessional, and whereas Patricia Barbetta exemplifies expertise, commitment, and professionalism in her duties, now therefore be it resolved, the Somerset Hills School District and Board of Education recognizes Patricia Barbetta's retirement effective July 1st, 2022, and extends her congratulations and best wishes for a happy, healthy, and enjoyable retirement.
Thank you. Heather, that concludes the report.
All right, thank you, Dr. Dempsey. Public comments for actionable agenda items. We very much welcome input from the public. Public comments are welcome at this time on any actionable agenda item. Towards the end of the meeting, there is a second public forum on any topic. Please state your name and address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, but an individual may speak a second time after all others who wish to speak on the topic have been heard. Please understand that our public forums are not structured as question and answer sessions, but are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. In instances where the board feels that there is a misunderstanding or inaccuracy, the board president or superintendent may address the comment. In accordance with New Jersey statute, the board will not discuss matters regarding specific personnel. Public comments will be limited to 30 minutes. Thank you for your input. We will notify you when you have 30 seconds left, and as always, we just ask that everyone be respectful of the comments. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Shepard. I live at 16 Ambar Place in Bernardsville. I want to speak to Ms. Jasmine Allen's proposed employment here. In an environment when candidates are eagerly looking for jobs, is the proposed candidate the best we can do? Taxpayers pay our current teachers to attend college, to attain higher degrees, to benefit our own school district. Why wouldn't we then hire from within? It seems to me, yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, sorry. Well, I'll give you your time back. I'm not going to stop you from speaking, but I just want to remind everyone in the public that if you are speaking and you're speaking about individuals, whatever comments you make, they're your liability. They are not the board's liability. The board does not take responsibility or liability for whatever comments you make about other individuals. I just wanted to make sure that we're all clear on that. Okay?
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'll go back to taxpayers pay our current teachers to attend college, to attain higher degrees, to benefit our own school district. Why wouldn't we then hire from within? It seems to me it's a slap in the face to go outside of this district when currently qualified employees may already exist right here. With the investment of money, the availability of a track record, and increased employee morale, why wouldn't we hire from within? By the way, Dr. Dempsey, you yourself came up through the ranks. If approved, due to her lack of administrative experience, Ms. Allen will need to be constantly and heavily monitored. Mentoring. Also, mentoring will have its own set of issues such as how much, who, and cost. To date, the proposed has only 1.5 years experience as an assistant principal in Montclair School District. And in the field of education, she has had only 1 year of study in a master's degree program. Let me enlighten you. Ms. Allen has 0 education courses in her undergraduate studies. Her entire undergraduate work consisted of media, communication, and entertainment. Therefore, I find it interesting that you would even entertain the thought of hiring a candidate without the gravitas that this school district needs. Do we need someone to be learning on taxpayers' dime? Taxpayers who you answer to deserve more education and less mentoring in our administrators. Board of Education members, you must think about this before approving an inexperienced candidate. We can do better. without a doubt. 8 years in Ms. Allen's employment life was devoted to the WEEN, W-E-E-N, Academy. WEEN is an acronym for Women in Entertainment Empowerment Network. Do we want to entertain our children or educate them? Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Tobin, Ambar Place. Imagine the disappointment the residents from the towns representing the Somerset Hills School District felt when they discovered that Bernards High School was not on the esteemed list of the top 25 schools, or 25 high schools in New Jersey. Middlesex County Academy for Science, Mathematics, and Engineering Technologies in Edison was the top-ranked high school in New Jersey, and it was nationally ranked at 23rd. Locally, Ridge High School took the 23rd spot in New Jersey and is ranked 515th nationally. Bernards High School is ranked 55th in the state and 1,291st nationally. As a resident and a parent, I am disappointed and concerned at the results of our high school rankings. For example, only 46% of our high school students passed the AP Calculus exam.
Excuse me, Mr. Tobin, is this an actionable item that you are discussing?
This is the Board of Education meeting, correct?
Right, so...
Yes, it's in regards to the election for the, the voting tonight for the Bedwell School Principal. That is happening, correct?
Okay.
Did I need to remind you of that?
No, sir, you were speaking about school ratings, so I was just
Right.
wondering.
These are just things that should be considered during the vote.
Of course. Thank you. Carry on.
Sure. As a resident and a parent, I am disappointed and concerned at the results in the high school rankings. For example, only 46% of our high school students passed the AP Calculus exam, and only 52% passed chemistry. Dr. Dempsey, are these good scores in your view? I am concerned we will continue along this trajectory. Does this candidate have the foundation and educational knowledge base to set the foundation that is needed for better results at the high school level? Elementary school is the basis, the foundation, which builds middle school, high school, college, and career success. We cannot miss a step. Thank you.
Hello. I'm Penny Metaluna from Bedwell, and I just want to talk a little bit about Bedwell. So, I've been there 39 years, and Bedwell is a great place to work, has terrific staff, they truly care about each other. And while, of course, we will welcome Miss Allen, because that's who we are extremely disappointed at how the whole process was handled. In previous years, we have had staff representation on a selection committee, choosing an administrator for our building. Having a Bedwell representative not only allows for the candidate to get to know the climate and the culture of our school, but it also allows the Bedwell representative to get to know the candidates. Also, we found out about our new principal from looking on the board agenda. It would have not taken much for someone to hold a brief meeting for our staff just to disseminate the information about the change in leadership. We also feel that April has had a respectable rapport with the staff, the students, and parents. Alongside Amy, April has helped lead our school through difficult COVID times. She's always shown organization, commitment, diligence, and professionalism every day. This leadership decision has a major impact on Bedwell community, and we would hope that the board would take our thoughts into consideration.
Phyllis DiStefano, kindergarten teacher at Bedwell. I'd like to reiterate what Penny said, that we welcome Ms. Allen to Bedwell because that's what Bedwell does. And we look forward to working with her in September. But I respect and admire April for her grace, her professionalism, and we're disappointed that she was not given the opportunity to lead our Bedwell family in continuous success. And I've heard this Board of Ed for the 40 years that I've been here also always say that we do what's best for the children, and I think continuity for the children would have been what was the best for these children, especially during these difficult times. Thank you.
Hi, Emma Davis, Bedwell Elementary. We welcome Miss Allen. We're looking forward to you coming to our Bedwell family. We're happy about that. But at the same time, I'm saddened that our assistant principal wasn't chosen for the position of our principal. But what bothers me the most is the way the process went, in my opinion. As a parent in the Morris School District, I have 3 children that attend there, and a member of the HSA, I had the honor of serving on a panel to select a principal. What I feel most proud of with the Morris School District is that they have representation from all the stakeholders. The current principal, multiple teachers, another principal from the district, and HSA members. Everyone who is intensely involved in the process of our children's education. I'm disappointed that there wasn't a Bedwell representation on this board whatsoever. I'm looking forward to getting to know Miss Allen, but I'm hoping in the future we at SHSD can work together collaboratively to make a more streamlined approach to this process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Grace Claybauer, 3rd grade at Bedwell. Again, to reiterate what everyone just said, we're Bedwell, so we are obviously going to welcome Miss Allen with open arms and help her along the way in her first year at Bedwell. In my mind, relationships are critical, especially in our profession of teaching. Relationships between kids and teachers, teachers and administrators, teachers, and parents. Collaboration and communication are key. And the lack of communication and collaboration in the process of the principal selection of Bedwell staff this round was really disappointing to us. We were hoping for a more streamlined process and hope that our opinion would be taken into consideration next time. What better way for a new potential hire to get to know the world that they will be walking into than meeting and getting to know firsthand from the source itself. We're just such a tight-knit community at Bedwell and such a collaborative group. We communicate as a building constantly, and April and Amy especially have been a huge part of this formation of this family, and we're forever grateful for them. So thank you.
Thank you. I would like to clarify one point, and then Dr. Dempsey, I think you would want to. So communicating to the Bedwell staff can't happen until board approval. So, a conversation prior to this point would not have been appropriate because the board has to approve the hire, which will take place this evening. So that I did want to comment on that.
From a timing perspective, that's absolutely correct. In terms of the makeup of that committee, we certainly wanted to have teacher representation. We felt as a group, in terms of the board president, the chair of personnel, that having teachers who were currently at Bedwell when there was an internal candidate might create some sense of a stress for that teacher, quite frankly. And so we certainly invited a teacher to participate in that process. We had administrators, we had a principal, but the teacher was somebody who had taught at Bedwell in the past and was now in another building. So certainly I apologize for people who felt as though they were not represented in that process. We took every pain to include building principal, supervisor, parents, teacher, a wealth of representation.
Thank you.
Sarah Falzarano. I wear a lot of hats in this district, parent, teacher, coach, among others. While I appreciate the perceived notion that you had in not including us as a Bedwell staff in the hiring process, a communication about that would have been appropriate, as many Bedwell staff have felt completely hurt and left out of the process. Again, I don't have to say everything that my colleagues have already said about welcoming Ms. Allen. We are so looking forward to working with you and welcoming you in. But the streamlining of the process and the communication seems to be an issue, and we want that fixed for all of us going forward. All of you as board members, all of us as staff members. There's no better way to help our kids.
Okay, Mr. Tobin, if you can hold on, if there's anybody else who would like to speak prior to someone speaking twice.
Before you get to speak a second time, everybody else has to have an opportunity.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just going to lower this quite a bit. Welcome, Miss Allen. Can everybody hear me? I'm very tiny. I can't really see over this, so I want to make sure. Gretchen, Colleen, myself, and many people here share the great honor of working at Bedwell for many, many years, being welcomed at Bedwell, as I was many years ago, having been in the district in another school. Welcome, Miss Allen, to you. I would just like to say a couple of things about what makes Bedwell special, since you were not on board beforehand, unfortunately not welcomed to visit with us or to speak with us or to have people on committees and then to later say, well, this is why it wasn't the best way to go, as people have said. I think Bedwell is special because of the community there. I think Gretchen and Colleen would agree, having gone through Bedwell, that is a very special place, help them get to where they are now. As for me, I was welcomed at Bedwell as well, and I'm very grateful for that. Bedwell's a special place because it is a large elementary school in a very tiny community. Whereas many communities have several elementary schools that feed into a middle school or a high school, Bedwell starts off big. And what's amazing about Bedwell is how warm and small it is. Welcome to you, and I'm so sorry to those who won't be able to continue with us, who've worked so hard to maintain that identity at our school. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no other public comments at this time. Was there any other public comment?
Just going to keep it very brief. Mind you, out of respect for the teachers at Bedwell, I had 3 daughters that attended Bedwell. They had a great experience there. And just as a person who's worked in the medical industry for, 20 some odd years now, like the hiring in this process, it almost seems like hiring a hospital administrator who's never been to the hospital. Why couldn't, like, every hospital is going to be looking at someone who's actually worked in the hospital before promoting them to the highest position? There's, I'm sure, many qualified candidates at Bedwell itself. Why couldn't the person have been hired from Bedwell? I don't know any of these teachers personally. I'm sure that they're very good, and I totally respect everything that they had to say. And that's just all I had to say. Thank you.
We go through the process in terms of who applies, and certainly I have no apologies about the way in which we vetted the candidates who applied for the position.
Keeping it secret from them.
It was not kept, it is what we do. So I'm going to just leave it at that. This is not a debate, but it was not intended to keep secret. And to your point, in terms of any Bedwell teacher could apply, the process is open to all applicants, internal and external.
It's not a debate, but is it a democracy? How many people in Bernards Township even knew about this?
It was on our website as an open position.
And I will just note that we follow the same process that we follow for all of administrative positions. It's no different than any other administrative position that we've hired. So thank you for your comment. We appreciate it. There are no other public comments at this point. Can I have a motion to close public comments? Nicole, second. Kristen?
Mr. Tobin, is there something else that you wanted to say?
No.
Are you just going to stand at the podium? I'm just asking.
God bless America.
God bless America, yes.
Okay, approval of minutes. Can we have a motion for the approval of minutes? Sam, and I'll second Sarah, or Kathy. Okay, thank you. Bob, I'm going to turn it over to you now for the public hearing on, sorry, we didn't do the roll call for the minutes. Thanks, Bob.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark Emery?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. de Grandpré?
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes.
Mrs. Rye?
Yes.
And Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thanks. Okay, Bob, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. As required by statute, we are going to have a public hearing on the proposed 2022-2023 budget that was presented at the board meeting last month, and it's been in the newspaper and it's on the website. So I'd like a motion to open the public hearing. Do I have Pat and Sam seconds. So if anybody in the public would like to come up and make a comment about the budget or ask a question, this is the time to do it. After that, then the board will vote on the budget. Seeing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing? Pat? And Kristen. All right. I will move on to the finance report. The Finance Committee met yesterday for 1 hour and 45 minutes. We discussed 6 items. 4 of them I will discuss, 2 of them were confidential. The first item was the budget that we're going to vote on this evening. It was approved by the county superintendent and with no recommendations. We also discussed that, if you remember from the last meeting, that our Chapter 44 healthcare savings of $197,820 we felt was excessive, and Mrs. DeMarco has submitted an appeal to the county for them to review that matter, since we feel the true number is much lower. Hopefully we'll get an answer in the next few months. The next item we talked about was the Macchio's renewal and lunch prices. This is the 5th year we've had Macchio's in a row. Next year, we're obligated to go out to bid to see if anybody wants to quote to do our food service. However, because of rising prices of food and supplies, they are recommending we raise the lunch prices by 25 cents. So it will cost $3.50 at Bedwell, $3.60 at the middle school, and $3.75 at the high school. The committee feels that this is a fair increase and recommends that we approve that. We also had the reconciliation of the Bedminster tuition for the 2020-21 school year, which is done by a third-party accounting company. That was not this school year, but the previous school year. And at that time, we estimated there would be 227 students from Bedminster, and in reality, there was 235. So there was 8 more students throughout the year, and the net cost was $19,097, where we estimated it would be $18,500. So this results in a shortfall to the school district, so Bedminster would need to pay us $291,000. However, the resource room, which we also do the calculation on, we owe them $11,000. So Bedminster owes us a net of $279,224 to be paid during the coming year. However, they feel they would like to do that. Just as a reference to everybody, the budget we're approving tonight, we're approving an estimated cost for high school as $19,220 for 235 students. And for the current year, it's $18,582 for 233 students. So this is a moving target. We try to estimate the best we can, and then we reconcile after the school year is done. And the last item we talked about was courtesy busing. Mrs. DeMarco looked at the number of people who take part. It's about 174 people. They pay for about half of the busing cost, and we felt that that's a fair price for the advantage that they get, especially with families who have to work. And these are students who are within the 2-mile range of Bedwell, or 2.5 miles from the high school or the middle school. They would have to walk that distance, and a lot of our roads in town do not have sidewalks, and so parents can take advantage of this for $450 a student or $1,000 per family maximum. The thing the board is worried about is maintaining bus drivers, staffing. You've read all the articles. We talked about bus drivers. Hopefully we can continue to staff going through the coming year, and we will monitor this closely. But right now we're making no changes, so we're happy the way it's going. That's what we talked about, and I'd like to move action items 1 through 13. Do I have a second? Okay. Any questions about what's on the agenda or what the committee discussed? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark Emery?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. DeGrandpre?
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes.
Mrs. Rye?
Yes.
And Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. All right, Pat, facilities and operation, please.
Good evening. Facilities and Operations met on April 20th, and our meeting lasted for about an hour. All the committee members were in attendance. No, wait, somebody was not there, right? No, everybody was there, sorry. Including Dr. Dempsey, Dr. Butler, and Mrs. DeMarco. The first thing we talked about was opening up the Performing Arts Center to outside party rentals. We hadn't been doing that this year because of the restrictions of COVID, but now that restrictions on COVID are easing, we felt that it would be a good idea to permit outside parties. They will pay fees, which is always a nice thing to get a little money back on our investment. And the rentals will depend on availability. Of course, school-related things get first choice in terms of time. We talked also about the e-waste day that the township is going to be sponsoring in the BHS upper parking lot. That'll be on May 21st at 9 a.m. and will run till 1 in the afternoon. It really is a very good program. If you have some stuff in your basement that no longer works that you'd like to bring, it's very helpful to come on that day. All concerned parties have been alerted, the building principals and the people that might otherwise use the facilities on those days, and they've indicated to us that there is no reason not to use the upper parking lot on that day. Mr. Lucas is in the process of inventorying storage rooms at both Bedwell and BHS. Because of the vagaries of COVID, things haven't gotten cleaned up and disposed of as well as they might be because we had other concerns that were more pressing. So, not anymore. Oh, there we go. With an eye towards, they are going to go into there, with the building principals as well, to look at what can be salvaged and what can be safely disposed of. Turn to the page. What is being looked into is creating a central storage area so that if and when items are needed, say a desk needs to be moved out of one school and into another, we can easily facilitate that. We had a long discussion on the BHS start time, and the committee realizes absolutely the advantage of later start at BHS. It is thought that there needs to be more time to have meaningful conversation with all the stakeholders before making a decision. And believe me, I regret that deeply. I would love to be moving this on this today, but we need to talk to everybody in every school, every building principal. We need to talk to transportation. We need to talk to the parents about moving this start time. I know that 5 minutes doesn't seem like such an insurmountable amount of time, but we feel at this point as a committee that there's not enough time to have needed conversations between now and the starting of school in September. So we're going to continue to discuss this. It's my hope that next year, it's okay, teacher's voice. It's my hope that this can be facilitated and will be facilitated next year. Believe me, we are really trying to work toward making this a reality. In terms of community relations, from an F&O perspective, we were given a status update on residency reaffirmation. This is an ongoing process that has been separated into two sections. First, we notified parents and stakeholders who were not moving from school to school. And now we've started to notify the parents and stakeholders whose children were moving from Bedwell to the middle school and also from the middle school to the high school. We have been told it is progressing apace.
Pat, I can just share that today I checked with the registrars in all the buildings, and in terms of the reaffirmation, we are at about 80% at this point. So I'm at a place where I'm going to probably take it back from them and then move to kind of get us to 100.
Thank you very much. Team Campbell Foundation will be placing pinwheels in front of the Alcott building during the month of May. I believe this is, Campbell would have been 20 this year, 16, sorry. I'm older than I think. I strongly urge people to take advantage of the beauty of those pinwheels.
and celebrate Campbell in that special way. We got a transportation update. Quarterly bus inspections are underway. Routing for next year is underway but is not complete, sort of a moving target. We were reminded by Mrs. DeMarco that having our own fleet of buses is important. We also know that storage of those buses is sometimes a problem because sometimes the buses need to be moved from the lower lot up to the upper lot and vice versa. And so we are looking to try to find permanent places that these buses can safely reside. Especially we're looking at places in Peapack and Gladstone where most of the buses go to and from. Okay. We got an update on the generators at both Bedwell Elementary and at the middle school. In terms of the middle school, the service technicians discovered a loose hose clamp and sight vision glass was loose. They feel that after that might have caused the Freon leak, and hopefully that is now fixed. It will be continued to be looked at to make sure that the generators are operating as needs be. In terms of the elementary school, the manufacturers were out this week to inspect the grounding issues. We'll wait to see the report and see who is responsible for getting it fixed, whether it's the manufacturer, the electrician, or it's going to be the district's responsibility. And I'll report out on that as I get the next information. Just a note, finally, we will be doing our in-person meeting on May 4th. May the 4th be with you at BHS. And we're very much looking forward to having a tour of the high school with the principals and looking at things from their perspective. Okay. I wrote it down somewhere. I would like to move items 1, 2, and 3 on the agenda. Do I have a second? Sam? Is there any discussion?
Yeah.
Kathy?
Pat, I'm really pleased to hear that you're going to continue looking at the BHS start times, and I really just want to commend the committee for acknowledging that, stakeholder feedback does need to be gathered, and your commitment to going through that stakeholder management process before any decisions are made. So kudos to the committee.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank the F&O committee also for looking at the start times. And I think it's an important thing to consider. I think my first comment regarding the start times is that, we in our strategic planning sessions, we heard loud and clear about the need for a renewed focus on social and emotional learning and the social and emotional health of our students, and it's a huge priority. And I just think that just moving the start time just a simple 5 minutes later could make a huge difference for a huge portion, or a good number of our high school students. I mean, an extra 30 minutes of sleep could be quite meaningful to a lot of our kids in our community. And while I totally agree that seeking community input on this decision is important and valuable, and especially including the high school student body. I guess if there's not enough time to have a meaningful conversation before September, I just request that we make a plan to have that conversation in the near future. I think it would be a really an important move or consideration for our kids. And I guess just the one question I had, it was how the district handled the delayed start time when it was implemented last year. I mean, didn't the kids start 5 to 10 minutes earlier last year I know it was an odd year last year. And so I assume it's a transportation issue.
I think that was I think that was an emergency situation, and certainly we kind of threw things together and did what we needed to do. I don't know that we would feel comfortable taking that same approach in something this substantial. But certainly I hear the desire to do it sooner rather than later and balance that with the need to include all stakeholders and have those conversations.
And did we hear any negative did we have any problems? I mean, there are a lot of, specifically with this.
We had other problems.
Yeah, right. I just wanted to point that out there, that we have done this in the past.
I would want to weigh in on this, too. We talked about it, we're talking about the importance of 5 minutes, and I don't disagree with that. It's important, it's a change, it takes a lot to move 5 minutes, but I think when we look at that as 30 minutes for a population of our high school students that are short on sleep to begin with, I just would like to make sure that we understand the importance of that 5 minutes, giving a population of our students an extra 30 minutes of sleep that is critical. And I think that if, we know Ginny is working with our new transportation manager, and if we were able to do this without impacting Bedwell, I think it would be a different story. Then we would be able to just say, it's the high school, it's the middle school, it's 5 minutes later. We could absorb that in an easier way. If we have to impact that second tier of busing, I think that's when it becomes a bigger conversation.
And Gretchen, thank you for saying that, because that was actually going to be my sort of next comment, is that I can't agree more with what Heather and Nicole said, but when we're going through this, soliciting stakeholder feedback, I would want to be sure that we're talking to not just the high school families and administration and teachers, but also those of the middle school and Bedwell, because those families and those schedules could be, impacted as well.
Right. And the first thing Ginny did was to see whether we could shift it now and just absorb that 5 minutes, but given where we stand with this new transportation manager and new software, we just felt like we couldn't do that and ensure that it was going to be smoother as opposed to rougher.
Sitting on the committee too, I'll chime in and say I did need some clarity when we were in the meeting, just with regards to it's mainly a logistical item, right? The 5 minutes, how that equates to 30 minutes and the students getting there. And I do agree with Nicole with regards to that goes a long way, right? I'll just give kudos to Ginny with the level of detail that you're going through for the transportation side of things. And I think just for the knowledge and the conversation, it's not necessarily a full year 22-23 decision. It could potentially be a mid-year decision. Is that right?
Absolutely. We were hopeful. Typically, the first month of the school year, transportation is always a little bumpy. So we were hopeful that if come October 1st, our routes are running smoothly, in a perfect world, we'd be able to say, okay, do this, and it wouldn't impact Bedwell at all. If we couldn't do that, then that gives us that opportunity to have those conversations and see where that leads us. If we didn't foresee wrinkles, we could do it before, winter was upon us, when I think then you're certainly talking about earlier in the morning and dark and all of those things. I'm always sensitive to the fact that I know from a PPAC Gladstone standpoint that the parents that we normally would hear from for younger kids who would struggle at the end of the day, when you have a kindergartner and the school year is starting and the child isn't getting off the bus until it is maybe going on, 20 to 5 or something because the bus has been running late. That's what I don't want to negatively impact. So we will see, but we certainly hear the clear message that this is something that the board would like to see.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. And I think just to connect the dots for anybody who may not have been part of these conversations, why we're saying that 5 minute, why we only need a 5 minute difference is because right now PPAC Gladstone and Far Hills students take one of two trains, one which gets them to school about 30 minutes early, and the other they have to kind of dash across town and hope to make it to class class on time. So, that is where the notion of moving the start time just a few minutes to allow for all kids to be comfortable to take that second train, which runs like 25 minutes later about. So I just wanted to connect those dots because.
And then hopefully NJ Transit doesn't change their schedule.
Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Pat, I just would like to say, thank you for continuing for Team Campbell Foundation. It's very important, not only for the families that knew Campbell, such as mine as well, but, for the family of Campbell herself. So thank you guys for making sure that that's implemented and continues on, and at least, and I don't know what's going to happen after graduation, but it's important, so thank you.
Any discussion? Anybody else? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark Emery?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. DeGrandpre?
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes.
Mrs. Wright?
Yes.
And Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Nicole, curriculum.
The Curriculum Committee met on Tuesday, April 19th for 2 hours. All committee members attended along with Dr. Dempsey, Dr. Butler, and Ms. Barna. First, Ms. Barna joined us to present the results from the winter 2022 reading diagnostic evaluation in grades K through 8. This is an in-house diagnostic assessment that provides rich student performance reports along with tools and guidance for remediation. Is this okay? Should I just keep going? What? Oh, thank you. Right. So it assesses a broad range of skills in every domain, including skills above and below a student's chronological grade, identifies the specific skills students need to accelerate their growth, and identifies weaknesses in incomplete learning. Results from the diagnostic assessment showed steady student growth from the fall assessment. In the fall, 49% of students were at or above grade level, or levels 4 or 5. As of the winter assessment, 60% were at or above grade level. The percentage of students in levels 1 or 2, which are 2 or more grade levels below the current grade, also significantly decreased from 20% in the fall to 13% in the winter. Academic growth was relatively consistent across the individual grades, and statewide or historical iReady reading data are not available. Interestingly, a similar percentage of students in both reading and math tested 2 or more grade levels below their actual grade. While the committee was happy to see steady growth, the group agreed that additional interventions were needed for the 30 to 40% of students below grade level in reading. This led into a discussion of summer programming, much of which is designed to help academically vulnerable students. So as an update, we administrators are currently developing additional summer curricular options for students needing additional support. For reading and English language support, options include a summer support program for English language learners, or ELL, at Bedwell, Rutgers reading support for students at Bedwell and the middle school, and a summer English and language arts lab at the middle school. For math, options include summer math labs at the middle and high schools, as well as summer math support program for new ELLs at the high school. American Rescue Plan funds will be used to support these programs. The administration supported lab-based programming because it may provide more flexibility for students and families interested in summer learning. We then transitioned into discussion of the district's curriculum development process. In June 2020, the New Jersey State Board of Education adopted the 2020 New Jersey Student Learning Standards in multiple content areas, including career readiness, health and physical education, science, social studies, and world languages. Typically, the administration hires teachers to update the district's curriculum in July and August to meet these standards, and the board votes on the updated curriculum in August. The 2020 New Jersey standards need to be incorporated into the curriculum by September 2022. Every 3 years, the CUSAC reviews the curriculum to ensure that the district's curriculum addresses state standards and performance expectations. Districts with CUSAC scores below 80% in each of the 5 areas are subject to New Jersey Department of Education interventions and district improvement plans.
So regarding the new curricular standards in health and PE, Dr. Butler indicated that Somerset County teachers involved in developing the instruction will be meeting as a group to discuss how to incorporate new standards and performance expectations into the curriculum in an age and developmentally appropriate manner. And just as a reminder, the state of New Jersey allows any child whose parent or guardian presents to the school principal a signed statement that any part of the instruction in health, family life education, or sex education conflicts with their conscience or sincerely held moral or religious beliefs shall be excused from the portion of the course in which such instruction is delivered. Health, family life education, and sex education are the only aspects of the curriculum for which parents have the option to opt out. We then discussed the mechanisms for opting out of these discussions and agreed that parents should be notified about the curricular instruction using multiple communication pathways. The administration will be reviewing the efficacy of these mechanisms when the new curriculum is being developed this summer. When considering the mechanisms for notifying parents currently in place, all agreed that every effort should be made to ensure that all parents have been made aware of the timing and the nature of the instruction. When an opt-in policy was mentioned, the committee agreed that an opt-in policy would not meet state curricular requirements and would not be consistent with the letter or the intent of New Jersey statutes. We then reviewed the aspects of the strategic plan that related to curriculum, which we'll be voting on tonight. Highlights included potential enhancements to the tech curriculum and facilities to support these changes, and new social and emotional learning curricula. During our discussion, we considered the advantages and disadvantages of purchasing a new curriculum to support social and emotional learning, or just modifying our current curriculum. Other highlights included new expanded options for career exploration, increased access to learning experiences outside of the building, particularly at the middle school and high school, including virtual academies and VOTEC options, modifications to the accelerated math pathways at BMS, and new programming for advanced credit as well as remediation at the high school. We also discussed strategies to document and communicate progress on achieving these objectives to the public. And finally, we approved all field trip and professional development requests, and that concludes my report. I'd like to move items 1 through 4 on the agenda. Do I have a second? Oh, great, thank you. Any discussion?
I'll just open up a quick discussion just because it seems like there are a lot of emails coming from the public and obviously hot topics out there. I think since, in my brief time here on the board, we've done a great job of presenting things to the public, and I've had a couple of conversations internally about this, but I happen to think, my mind keeps going back to, if it's in the classroom, it could be in the boardroom, right? So with some of the changes, I know a lot are perceived as not drastic, but a lot of opinions might seem otherwise. I think as we begin the process to hire teachers and write the curriculum, and then are rapidly asked to approve the curriculum before we implement in September, is it possible for the board to present this type of material, considering how sensitive it is, and et cetera, et cetera? I don't know your thoughts on that.
We can definitely do that. We have done curricular presentations to the board and the public. We've done them at the HSA. Our supervisors typically do it once a year, so we can ensure that happens. One of the goals in this summer curriculum writing, in terms of that content that may be more sensitive, is to really look at how we can maybe package it in a more discreet manner. The only thing that is a little bit challenging is the timing of all of this, so I don't know that I could promise that we would front-load presentations before the board's approval, because we have to have that curriculum on the books as of September 22. What I could say is we will do our best to take things that we believe might fall under an umbrella that we want to discuss more or understand more, and we could move them. We will make sure they don't happen, September 10th, so that we have time to say, okay, approve this curriculum, share it with people with the knowledge that those topics won't necessarily be front-loaded. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and that actually gets me thinking about the voting process too, which I know I've had a couple conversations on this. And again, I am one of the newbies, so I'm learning about the voting process and the timing of things as we go. But even in the DEI meeting that we had, I kind of made a joke to say, why do we vote, right? And I think it's important for everybody to hear this because there are state mandates, and I think one of the first things we're told is that although we're elected, we are, state officials now and asked to implement state mandated items. So,
Ian, I would go a step further, just to say, you're not only told that, you take an oath to that, actually.
Exactly. So
I just, yeah.
So, that is the dialogue, and that is what is expected of us. So jokingly, I do say, why do we vote, right? Because it seems like while we are voting on the content of the curriculum, we're really not. Jokingly, it's almost like we're voting on the color of the textbook, right? Or the how it's implemented. That, I think, is why the attention to it and who's writing it, how it's written, and the forward thought and dialogue is important. Right, that would just be my only other item.
I don't disagree. I think we do the best job that we can to be as transparent and share things with fidelity to your point in terms of what all those rules are. I know you and I were talking earlier today. This is one book of a set that guides our efforts. I think, and Darlise, you or Heather may want to jump in here, that vote is endorsing that this process has been gone through with an eye toward the details of what the expectations are. I don't know if there's more to add than that, but that's how I certainly see the board vote, but I'm not a voting board member on this board.
I think while we follow the standards, I think we have a lot of flexibility in saying and I think how is the important part here. I think, these standards don't mandate specific curriculum. They provide information about what the students are expected to learn, and they provide guidance for districts to develop curricula that is age and developmentally appropriate and that reflect the values of the entire community. And I believe that our administration teachers, and I believe that they are truly connected to our students and their needs and have a really good understanding of what's age and developmentally appropriate. And right now, I think it's appropriate, totally entirely appropriate to ask these questions. But I think that that we can keep looking into this. But these are some of my thoughts.
I just wanted to reiterate that, and Heather referenced the oath that we take, and that is to uphold the rules and regulations of the state and all court orders and laws, and these standards are benchmarks for where students are expected to be at a certain point in time, whether that's 2nd, 5th, 8th, 12th grade. There was a memo put out by the New Jersey Department of Education that indicated that in no way does the New Jersey Department of Education endorse, write, or provide curriculum. That is at the sole discretion of the district. So although they provide these benchmarks, which are not explicit, they give the school districts a lot of flexibility in how to implement that. We then hire our teachers to do summer curricular work who are experts in their fields, and I would just, having children gone through every building in this school, I have full faith in those educators that they handle everything in a developmentally appropriate way. So I know it's tongue-in-cheek, but to say it's simply the color of a book, I would say that we have a heck of a lot more discretion than that.
Yeah, and I would just reiterate that this is something that our school district does year after year after year. Standards change. We use the expertise of our administration and our staff to develop curriculum based on that change. And, as a board member, to Sam's point, that's where we focus, is how this is implemented in our school district. No, we're not voting on the New Jersey state standards here at this table, right? That's a Trenton, that's a legislative thing. But we are voting on how those standards are rolled out to students in Somerset Hills School District. And that's why, as board members, we're here and what our vote accounts for.
And just to be clear, myself, my family, my daughters have had a tremendous experience, and I trust and admire all the administrators. And that's why I think it's important to put that faith in them, just like we do Durlease, to present the material, to present it to the public. Because, again, I'll say, if it is in the classroom with whatever age, then it could also be in the boardroom. So that's what I'm saying.
I just wanted to comment, Ian, on that, if it's in the classroom, it should be in the boardroom, and I can't agree more. And I think that the timing of this is really important around the release of this new curriculum for PE and health. When we were in our curriculum committee meeting, I think most members of that committee said that they felt that there wasn't a significant change. And I had felt differently, and then I went back and I read the 2014 recommendations, and I read the 2020, and in my humble opinion, and maybe I missed something, I actually thought that there was quite a difference, and that, there was an earlier introduction of complex terminology, concepts, and topics that I would love to see a presentation and be able to better understand, because maybe I missed something, but my takeaway was that it was different. So I think it would be great to have it put out there, and Gretchen, thank you for your willingness to entertain that.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think we ever want to do these things so that people are concerned that somehow something's hidden or they don't understand. I think parents want to understand as much as possible about what their children are learning, about all topics, not just this.
And maybe this is a question for down the line too, and possibly for Durlease, but obviously it's been written to us all about the different options, whether it's opt-in, opt-out, what does that mean from a state perspective? I don't know if that's for you or otherwise.
Sure. There's no opt-in, it's opt-out. It's opt-out. So parents have, and actually that statute has been around for a while. The parents have the ability, I'm sorry, Gretchen, what year was it? Oh, Gretchen looked at the year, 1979. My goodness, something that's actually occurred before I was a lawyer. For health, physical education, and family life. Parents have the, Gretchen and I were just looking at this a couple of minutes ago. Yeah. Parents have the... We all have it. We've been looking at it.
A lot.
To do it otherwise?
Right. I think in agreement, and just to say thank you, because I've spoken to different people about this, and I appreciate the fact that you guys are working, as far as the policy for the opt-in policy that you guys mentioned.
No, it's not an opt-in policy. It's opting out.
Opt-out policy.
No, the reverse. I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. What we're talking about is that there is a statute that allows parents the ability to have their children opt out of certain parts of the curriculum related to health, physical education, and family life.
Just real quick, my question wasn't about that. I understand that completely. My question is, does the district have any flexibility in its approach to an opt-in versus opt-out process?
My research shows that there is no ability to opt in. There is a requirement to have, there has to be some curriculum.
I just think that's important to say, especially because we've received that question from members of the public. I'm still learning the parameters of things, so I know it's been around for a while, but again, what are the parameters? What are the bumpers that we have?
Right, so it's not an opt-in ability. Parents don't have the ability to opt into curriculum. What they do is they have the ability to opt out of certain curricula. for reasons of religious beliefs, moral beliefs, or sincerely held beliefs. So they can opt out, there's no opt-in option. The default is everyone is in the curriculum, and in certain instances, parents can opt out.
Right, but in the case of this in particular, let's just say for the health, for opting out, I totally understand that to make sure that every parent knows and has the opportunity to do so, because if if it's missed.
And I think that's that piece, Holly, to be sure that everybody knows, right? We talked that part of this summer curriculum writing has to really look K-12 at what those mechanisms are at the grade levels so that parents are aware, right? We just don't want people to find out by surprise.
And I just wanted to comment on the opt-out. That's been there since forever, obviously 1979, I would think. And I read in what you wrote that you are going to make a real concerted effort to let stakeholders know what their options are. And this will be, I would assume, be done by the community folder, by letter, by every way. When we're trying all the time to contact stakeholders and make them a part of the process, even if someone says, I didn't know this, I would assume that on the first day of school or the second day of school or whenever the kids start in health, if a parent comes to you and says, I would like my child to opt out, you're not going to say, you didn't fill out the paper. No. Opting out it's so convenient. I've never in my life as a teacher, and I've been teaching for 40 years, I have never questioned a parent's ability to opt a child out of any program. I've never penalized a child for opting out. I've been understanding because that's what we do as teachers, and I can assume as administrators and as a board, we will be similarly, accommodating to our stakeholders.
When you say stakeholders, do you mean parents?
Yeah.
Okay. So just so that, just to be redundant, because that's what lawyers do that. So it's statute 18A:35-4.7, exclusion of pupils from program statement of parent. Any child whose parent or guardian presents to the school principal a signed statement that any part of the instructions in health, family life education, or sex education is in conflict with his conscience or sincerely held moral or religious beliefs shall be excused from that portion of the course where such instruction is being given, and no penalties as to credit or graduation shall result therefrom. So, and it was laws of 1979.
And I think just one other thing which we haven't touched on is that this is a discrete curriculum that's given at a set point in time. It's not weaved throughout the curriculum, so it's not like if you choose to opt out, you might hear it in an accidental lesson at a different point in time. So
That is our intent, and we want to make sure as we review the curriculum that is currently there and updated for those new standards, that we are conscious of that, because I think that will give people confidence that they know when it's coming and what to expect, which I think is what we're talking about.
Right, because I know there's a lot of community comment about bleed from the perspective of if patients, listen to me, sorry, I'm going back to my own healthcare background. If students hear about it on the bus or if they hear about it in other places, so trying to limit the chance of that bleed potentially from their peers. Not that we all know social media and everything else, depending on the age, it's going to get out there, but to try and limit that the best that we can at certain age levels.
Just one other comment. Darlise, I know you said that you can't have an opt-in, it has to be an opt-out. That's clear. I'm just wondering if there's the possibility of sending home a form regarding the curriculum that every parent would have to sign and acknowledge that they received it, and then have an opt-out, box on that form. and the place that I'm coming from is for this year, and I should be a parent that's very plugged in, but I fully admit, I actually missed the 5th grade form that went home because it was a Google form. And my daughter isn't the most diligent about giving them to me. So, I would love for that form to go home, and every parent to have to sign that they received it. I mean, is that a possibility?
From a legal perspective, yes. From an administrative perspective, I think that's what you want to let us kind of devise and figure out. And one of the things I've heard Sam say often is that notion of how you make sure that people can get information from different pathways so that you say, we gave it to you in every possible way. So stay tuned. I just have to think through. I don't want to say to you, sure, Kathy, and then find out that there's some downside that I haven't thought through.
And I'm certainly not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just trying to think through this and think about an alternate way that could be viable, and I just wanted to see it from a legal perspective. Something similar would be viable. Thank you.
Call, please. Thank you.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark Emery?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. DeGrandpré?
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda?
Yes, but I will be abstaining from 3H.
Great. Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes.
Mrs. Wright?
Yes.
And Mrs. Santoro?
Yes, but I will be abstaining from 3I and J.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Kristen, personnel.
So the Personnel and the Policy Committees both met back-to-back on Monday, the 18th, for an hour and a half, and we had the majority of the committee in attendance, as well as Dr. Gretchen Dempsey and Dr. Butler. The beginning of the meeting was about confidential matters, and then we got into a number of community relations and other topics. Some of this may be a little repetitive, but bear with me. The board and administration did discuss the hiring of our Bedwell principal. And the board and administration had heard over the past few months from the public and private comments about a significant desire to increase our test scores and have increased connection to the community and an administrative welcoming presence at Bedwell for incoming and established families that know the kids, the families, and maintains the culture that's currently there at Bedwell. And that can also reconnect us all after the pandemic. With the announcement of Amy Phelan's retirement, we wanted to ensure that we integrated these desires into our search process. There were numerous applicants, as Dr. Dempsey mentioned, and ultimately the administration selected from the first round interview and subsequently asked a smaller group to complete the performance task, as she mentioned, of creating a video, which was of their first 100-day integration plan. Ultimately, from the first round interviews and videos, a handful of candidates were selected by administration to meet with a committee that was representative members of administration, the Bedwell HSA, the Board of Ed, as well as a prior Bedwell teacher. All candidates were superbly qualified and performed well in their interviews. The committee provided blinded feedback to administration. A decision was made based off of the summarized feedback from the committee that clearly indicated a vision for a broader community to look to improve the Bedwell community communication, the culture, and to maintain our family feel, as well as to fulfill the desire to look for a candidate with a demonstrated ability to analyze and performance data and to drive improved student outcomes. The final candidate is on the agenda tonight for board approval. We also discussed in relation to community relations the winter sports and team sizes. So some board members after the last board meeting and subcommittee meetings and administration had received feedback in regards to certain winter sports and team sizes, in regards to equity of play, practice times, uniforms, and other topics. Currently, Somerset Hills School District does maintain a no-cut policy for all sports, and to be clear, that has not changed. The overall discussion of possibilities and options for accommodating the number of students that are engaging in sports is going to be brought back to have discussions with Mr. Hoppy and administrations and the board to explore future possibilities and the possibility to consider a potential pilot in the future. And our recommendations are to start this discussion now and to possibly discuss looking at winter sports as an initial pilot process. We then discussed, as everybody is discussing these days, the lovely process of retirements and exoduses and the challenges everybody faces in recruiting new employment. And we discussed a few potential options of ways to consider looking to further the exposure of Somerset Hills School District to increase the diversity of candidates that may be able to apply to our school district in the future. We did at that point table our discussion of ongoing job descriptions that we've been reviewing to allow for time to talk about policies and procedures, since some of the prior discussions were rather lengthy. So we'll be discussing those in May. So with that, I'd like to move agenda items 1 through 13. Do I have a second? And is there any discussion?
Before you start discussion, I'd like to read in item 14, to accept the retirement for Patricia Barbetta, paraprofessional, effective date of July 1, 2022. So the item will be 1 through 14.
Not truly discussion, but I do appreciate very much the commitment that the district is giving and has given over the years to diversifying our teaching staff and our para staff, et cetera, et cetera. Children need to see people that look like them. And I really feel like it's very important to do this. I was looking, as was Ms. Frenda last night, when I was at North Brunswick High School, it was not a very diverse place. I'll tell you, I graduated in 1977, so you can do the math. Right now, North Brunswick High School is the 4th most diverse district in the state of New Jersey. And, I'm not dead yet. So over the course of my lifetime, districts have changed. Our district is changing. When I went out on the road and talked to people and said that 20% at that time of our student body was Hispanic, people did not believe me. That's in our school report. And our district is changing from year to year. So I really appreciate that commitment to look farther out for qualified teachers. The one thing I'll tell you is almost everybody with my color hair is leaving, and it's going to be hard to find good qualified candidates.
Kristen, I just have a question about the process for hiring the Bedwell principal. It said in the report that a Bedwell teacher was part of the interview, so I was surprised when a lot of the teachers here today said that there wasn't. And Gretchen, I know you mentioned, but I think it was a bit of a whirlwind, so can you repeat why a Bedwell teacher was not
It was a teacher who had taught at Bedwell for years and is currently teaching in district in another building. The 3 candidates that went to the interview committee, knowing that one of them was an internal candidate and 2 of them were external, I felt, and I certainly spoke to board members about this because I wouldn't have made that decision unilaterally, but I did not feel like that was a fair position to put a teacher into. So that was that choice.
Fair in terms of that they would be biased, they would feel uncomfortable? I actually hadn't considered that because typically we do have someone from the specific building, but this is the first time we were in the situation where we had an internal candidate. So I hadn't thought about it, and I appreciated Gretchen's thought process through that because I can see how that could be a challenging situation for someone. Clearly we got feedback, but I think...
We wanted somebody who was familiar with the school, certainly. We understand that.
Absolutely. Okay. I wish it had been in the report because the personnel report said that it was a Bedwell teacher. You know what I'm saying?
I apologize if I probably could have typed it as previous, but I happen to have known her from Bedwell at the time, so that's probably my mistake.
It did say Bedwell administrator also. Am I wrong in thinking, was there a reason why one of the administrators weren't moved up? Or was there not an administrator? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can ask, you want to.
We had an administrator there. We would typically not include the retiring administrator to hire his or her replacement, especially when one of the candidates was somebody who worked so closely. We look at our hiring practices.
No, I understand about the committee. I'm asking about the reason for not hiring, an existing Bedwell administrator.
I'm not going to comment on that publicly. We went through a process
that we just have talked about numerous times, and, we picked a highly qualified person that met all the criteria.
We had 3 highly qualified candidates who went through the committee and were given the same opportunity to speak to the group about what their vision was for Bedwell moving forward. And the committee members dialogued, and there was a clear consensus around who the desired candidate was. So I make no apologies, I should say, about what we did. I think we did it with fidelity and honesty, and I understand that there are people who may be disappointed in that, and I think change is hard. I get that. I'm sympathetic to it, but I certainly don't think that we did anything that...
I'm not saying that. I think it's just, this is all healthy dialogue to have with the passionate teaching base that we just heard. So I'm not questioning the procedure. What I'm really doing is saying this is healthy dialogue to have in front of the teachers. So that's, yeah.
Okay.
So are we ready for roll call?
Yes, we're voting on items 1 through 14. Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark Emery?
Yes, but abstain from 2A1. AI, please. Thank you.
You mean 2A? Yes. Okay, because you said 2AI. You said abstain from. Okay, got it. Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. T. Grandpre?
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes, and abstain on 2A.
Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes, but abstain from 2A.
Mrs. Rye?
Yes.
And Mrs. Santoro?
Yes, and I would just like to welcome you, Miss Allen. I know you're there and I can't see you, so I do apologize. Hi. I would like to take this opportunity to give you a warm welcome, a heartfelt warm welcome, and I am so excited to have your many talents, your passion that you conveyed for education and for students in our district, and I sincerely welcome you. So, and thank you for being here. I appreciate you coming this evening and being here, and we are thrilled to have you. Policy?
Okay. In terms of policy, we did also, because of time constraints, table any revisions of any bylaws until our May meeting. We did discuss policy P3421.13 and P4423.13 in relation to postnatal accommodations for the SMA alert of 219, and were reviewed and adopted in their first reading to help to solidify and ensure accommodations were clearly in place for postnatal teachers returning to work. We reviewed timeline and clarified for the CFSA evaluation process, which is a part of P1240 and Regulation 5240, which all board members will be a part of in the upcoming few months for Dr. Dempsey's evaluation process. And then we also reviewed policies and regulations in second reading, all of which were revised policies on student surveys, analysis, evaluations, examinations, testings, and treatment, prevention and treatment, and sports-related concussions and head injuries, and the adult high school, which I'll remind everyone we don't currently run, and political activities. We also reviewed policies in first reading, which were anti-hazing, administration of school surveys, and of note to the board, we were going to pass the anti-hazing policy in one reading at this time because the committee felt that we would be following this policy regardless of putting it into second reading. So with that, I would like to move agenda items 1 and 2 on the agenda. Thank you.
Second?
Kathy. Okay, got it. Is there any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark Emery?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. DeGronko?
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes.
Mrs. Rye?
Yes.
And Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Sam.
Okay, quick strategic plan update. The Strategic Plan Committee met on Thursday, April 7th, to review the completed plan and to offer input before it was presented to the full board for adoption. Tonight, we're going to be voting on a resolution to, I use my voice too, they're all actually tonight. We'll be voting on a resolution to approve the completed strategic plan. If approved, tomorrow it will be uploaded and the public will be able to access the updated plan via the homepage of the district website. The strategic plan will be a living document that will be updated regularly as progress is made on each of the objectives that comprise the identified goal areas. This will include greater detail and specificity as the plans evolve. Each committee agenda will have a standing section to review the status of all relevant and related strategic plan objectives. And that information will then be reported out by committee chairs at the monthly BOE meetings. Additionally, Dr. Dempsey will be giving periodic updates regarding the status of the strategic plan. So I would like to move action item number 1 on the agenda. And do I have a second? Okay, any discussion?
Not working. I don't know even why I'm bothering. Like, come on.
You want to.
Yeah. Or should I say it again? Yeah. Guys, thank you, everyone.
Anybody else? Okay. Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark Emery?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. DeGronko?
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda?
Yes.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes.
Mrs. Rye?
Yes.
And Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, anybody with supplementary matters?
Yes, I have one item. No, something else. With all the talk about school rankings, everybody should pull out their phones if they want to. And I did this morning about the U.S. News and World Report. And we heard one opinion tonight. Everybody should make their own opinion why we are ranked where we are and why other schools are not similar to us and we're not similar to them. They have a lot of great graphs and charts on here about every school, and you can learn about the ranking process and make your own opinion. My opinion is we're doing pretty damn well for what our school is. I'm not worried about who's next door sometimes because they're not the same, but everybody should make their own opinion. And I think it's great information. This is the best rating system I've seen in a long time with the graphics and the information available. And
I appreciate that, Bob. I shared with Heather the other day, and I was going to share with the board, I just haven't had a moment, that Scott wrote to me as soon as we saw it yesterday in the morning, and he said that we were number 55, and there were about 20 magnet charter schools ahead of us. He said it's noteworthy because in terms of our college readiness, we are number 26, and from what he could tell, if we did not include the magnets and charters ahead of us, we would be number 12 or 13. So he felt very good that based on our demographics, our test scores, and graduation rates may be lower because of some of our students, but all in all, he thought it spoke positively about the high school, and he said, especially when this publication did not rank us at all for years.
And I would like to comment on it.
Look, my district feeds into 3 of those high schools. They have classes of 90 students who have to rigorously test in to go to that school. It's easy to be the best when you only select the best. And I know for a fact my kids are feeding into high tech and math and biotech. I see what those kids are doing. Yeah, they're great. If I had only 90 kids in a class that I had to deal with, and they were all here to begin with, not too hard. Not as hard.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate you bringing that up. And I think we look at the kids that come out of this school district, and at the end of the day, that is what tells the story of our school.
Anybody else on supplementary?
Okay, public comments. Public comments are welcome at this time on any topic. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address. Thank you for your input. Okay, if there are no public comments, can I have a motion to close? Mr. Baker, all in favor of closing public comments?
Yes.
Aye. Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And a second?
We're done. Done. Okay.